So in today's video, we're looking at complex trinomials. Now let's start with what is a complex trinomial. So a complex trinomial takes the following form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. And what makes a complex trinomial special is that our a term does not equal to 1. So let's take a look at an example here. So if we have 4x squared minus 12x plus 5, okay? Well, we can see here our a term, our b term, and our c term. All right, we can see that our a term is equal to 4. So the way we're going to go about factoring a complex trinomial is a bit different than a simple trinomial. So first, and we're going to do this thing called our X or our cross method. You'll see different names for it. But what we're putting in here is first we need to find two numbers that multiply to our a and our c term multiplied. Meaning, our first step is we're going to do 4 times 5, which this is equal to 20. Okay? Now, here's where it is a little bit similar, is we still need to find a term that also adds to our middle b term here. So we're going to put that at the bottom of our x. So at the top of our x, we have our 20, and the bottom we have our negative 12. Now we need to find two numbers that multiply to 20 and add to negative 12. So let's go through some. So what multiplies to 20? Well, we have 5 and 4, but those won't add to 12. So how about 10 and 2? Well, if I add those, they won't add to 12, but if we make both of them negative, then they will add to 12 and they'll still multiply to 20. Now, we're not done yet. We can't just write out our final answer like a simple trinomial. What we're going to do now is take that middle term, that negative 12 here, and split it up into these two terms. So it's going to look like 4x squared minus 10x minus 2x, and we're going to keep that plus 5. Okay? Now that we've got to this point, what we're going to do is treat these first two terms like they're its own question and these next two like its own question. And we're just going to do some common factoring. So I'm actually going to write these out in brackets here just for this first one. So we have 4x squared minus 10x and negative 2x plus 5. Okay, so if we look at this first one here, what can we common factor out? Well, we can take a 2 out of both terms and an x. All right, so if we imagine we divided that first one by 2x, we'd be left with 2x. And if we divide negative 10x by 2x, we're left with negative 5. Now over here, right, there's nothing that we can common factor out, but we can take out a negative 1. And I'll show you why we're going to do that. Right, so if we took out a negative 1, we'd get negative 2x would become 2x, and 5 would become negative 5. Now, the nice thing about complex factoring is we can always check to see if we've got the right answer, because what is left in the brackets has got to be the same. And if we look here, both of them are 2x minus 5. Now, for our final answer, what we're going to do is write out what's in our brackets as our first bracket. So 2x minus 5. Now in our other bracket, we're going to write what's left outside of the brackets, which in this case is 2x minus 1. And this right here is the answer to our first question. Okay, so let's go on to another one here. So we have 8x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, so let's bring out our cross method again. So first we need to find two numbers, we need to multiply 8 and negative 3. So 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. And in our bottom here, we're going to write our b term, which is 2. Now we need to find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to 2. So let's think about this here. So how about 6 and negative 4? Right? They multiply to negative 24 and they add to 2. So now we're going to write out 8x squared plus 6x minus 4x minus 3. And once again, we're going to do the same thing. Treat these first two like one question and these other two like another one. And we're going to common factor. So if we're looking at this first one here, right, we can common factor out a 2 and an x. And we're going to be left with 4x plus 3. Now this other one here, well, if you remember on the last question, we've got to get the stuff in the brackets to match. So there's nothing necessarily to common factor out of these, but we can common factor out a negative, just -1, and that will get these brackets to match. So we'll be left with 4x plus 3 in the brackets. And if you look, our two brackets match, so we know we've done it correctly. And now to write out our final answer, we write out what's in our brackets here. So 4x plus 3. And then we write out what's left outside of our brackets, which is that 2x and that -1 there. So this is our answer for the next one. Okay, let's get into another one here. So we have 12x squared plus 4x minus 1. Okay, so once again, we're going to go to our cross method. And we need to find first what 12 times -1 is, which is -12. And now in the bottom, we're going to put 4. And now we need two numbers that multiply to -12 and add to 4. So let's think here. How about 6 and -2? Right, so those will multiply to 12 and add to -4. So now we're going to write out again, except instead of that middle term we started with, we write plus 6x minus 2x, and we keep that -1. Now, once again, we look at each of these as its own thing, and we're going to common factor them. So this first one here, right, we can take out a 6 and an x, and we'll be left with 2x plus 1. And once again over here, we just need to take out a negative. So we'll be left with 2x plus 1. And our brackets match. So now we can write out that this is equal to bracket 2x plus 1, bracket 6x minus 1. Okay, now let's go on. We got two more questions here. So we have 2x squared minus 7x plus 6. So once again, we'll do our cross method. And in this case, we're multiplying 6 and 2, which is 12. And in the bottom is -7. So two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to -7. Well, how about -4 and -3? All right, so now we have 2x squared minus 4x minus 3x plus 6. Okay, and we're going to group them together again. And if we go to factor this, well, this first one here, we can common factor out a 2 and an x, and we'll be left with x minus 2. And this other one over here, we can factor out a -3. And we'll be left with x minus 2. So our brackets match. So now to write out our final answer, we write out our x minus 2 and our 2x minus 3. Okay, so let's try one more question here. So we have 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. Okay, so once again, we've got to multiply our 3 and our 2, and we'll get 6. And in the bottom, we put our b term, which is 5. So now what are two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 5? Well, 3 and 2. All right, those multiply to 6 and add to 5. So now we're going to get 3x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 2. And group these two together and the last two together. And now if we go to common factor these, that first one we can common factor out a 3 and an x. So we'll be left with x plus 1. And our other one over here, we can factor out a 2. So we'll be left with x plus 1. And our brackets match. So to write out our final answer, this will be equal to x plus 1 and 3x plus 2. So those are some complex trinomial practice examples there. So just remember your cross method, and the process is the same each time.